Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, it's a rivalry renewed. For the final time this season, the Ottawa Senators will take on the Detroit Red Wings.
And now the Sens are 20 games in under interim head coach Jacques Martin. We'll take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Plenty of it and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 971 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. You can follow us on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello to all the Red Wings fans. Hate watching this show. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll take the hate, but it's all reciprocal, as we know this rivalry has grown between the two franchises. Today is Wednesday, January 31st, and Pilsy, this game has the makings of a true classic before the All-Star game.
Yeah, what a way to cap things off heading into the All-Star break. And whether you're a Sens fan, a Red Wings fan, or just a hockey fan, this is the type of game you get up for. And look, these teams have kind of been aligned in the process of their rebuilds. And what that's done is put Sens fans and Wings fans constantly comparing each other to each other's teams. And it's created a good rivalry, not only on the ice, but off the ice as well. So that's what you want to see. And if Red Wings fans are coming in, you know, we love seeing the hate. We love the engagement, but just try to spice it up a little more than rent free or referring to Alex DeBrincat. We get it. Try to bring some more oomph to it, because this is going to be the final time these two teams meet this season. So leave it all on the ice and leave it all on the Twitter website. Leave it all on Twitter.
Leave it all online.
Leave it all online. Yeah, leave it all online. But either way, look, for the Ottawa Senators and Sens fans, there's not a lot to get up for this season, but a rivalry game like this, where there's so much kind of pressure and the heat is boiling, this is going to be one hell of a game tonight.
Final time that these teams are meeting this season. As I mentioned, Ottawa is 2-1 against the Red Wings. The game they lost was in Ottawa, and then they obviously won that game in overtime after blowing a 4-0 lead, turning into a 4-4 tie before Tim Stützle stepped up to the plate and smashed a game-winning walk-off home run. And then the last game deteriorated into a debacle, but the type that Sens fans love to see in terms of the scoreboard. 5-1. It is great to see that Dylan Larkin is back, healthy, playing well. It was a scary incident with Matthew Joseph and Parker Kelly just battling out front of the net. And then maybe the scariest part of it was how David Perron, fake tough guy of the year award winner, goes cross-check to the skull of Artem Zub after Zub had missed time with a broken jaw earlier this season. He served his 6-game suspension. He'll be in the lineup, and we'll see if there's any retribution. Look, Matthew Joseph already fought after the play.
Yeah.
Is it a wash? I think in the dressing rooms, maybe, but the fan base, I mean, Matthew Joseph's going to get booed every time he touches the puck. Heck, he might even be booed anytime he's on the ice, because we can say what we want, and we love getting the Red Wings fans fired up. That's a passionate fan base, and they're also in their feelings because their Detroit Lions just got absolutely stomped on in the second half of their game, the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. They thought they had it at halftime. Had them in the first half, not going to lie. But that's neither here nor there. Should be a great game tonight. Look, the Red Wings are going to be without Patrick Kane, and we'll see how that affects it. We'll get into our full game day preview, but why don't, to start, let's look at how we got here with this rivalry, because it's more than just that 5-1 game in December. It all started back last February when the Red Wings were trying to make a push towards the playoffs, and then they had those two games back to back, which you never see. 2 games back-to-back in the same arena, but
Yeah.
because of a postponement from earlier on in the year, they did that. What was the combined score? It was like 12-2.
I think it was 13-2.
And that's when you were on your way to Cabo to come see me, and it was just it was a mess for the Red Wings from then on out.
Yeah, Ian Mendez and I'm forgetting the guy's name, Max Boltwell, I think it is.
Boltman.
Okay, my apologies. Wrote an article for The Athletic where they both kind of compared where the Sens were at, Mendez, and then Boltman where the Wings are at, and like how did they get here? How did the Wings get where they are while the Sens are where they are? And they reference those 2 games, and Yzerman seems to kind of downplay it, like, no, it wasn't that really big of a deal. But after those games, he completely switched his game plan when it came to trading players at trade deadline. They got rid of Hronek, they got rid of Bertuzzi, and a couple other guys. So clearly that was a sign to him that his team wasn't ready. And Pierre Dorion went the opposite way, and he pushed chips in to go get Jacob Chychrun. They were aggressive this offseason. And it looks like the patience has paid off for Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings here. So, look, you can look at the time, it was great, but I think if you're a Red Wings fan, you got to feel like that's almost a blessing in disguise, because I don't think they would have made it that far if they did keep their team last season, but now they've set themselves up for success, not only this season, but moving forward as well. So it was fun to dominate them like that, but in the end, it might have been a better play for Detroit.
Well, the Sens have dominated this back-to-back, going even further than just that. The Senators are 9-1-1 in their last 11 games against the Detroit Red Wings. So they've had their success, and the one regulation loss they suffered, or sorry, the second regulation loss they suffered, or was that overtime? I'm trying to think back.
You said 9-1-1, so there's not 2 regulation losses there.
No, the one regulation loss was earlier this year. Remember, Detroit went three goals on the power play in Ottawa. That Ridley Gregg hit on DeBrincat, which was so sweet. It did really kind of turn the momentum the other way. No, the Red Wings win beyond that was, looking back, anyways, I can't find the exact game, but it was on New Year's Eve. I remember it like it was yesterday, Pillsy. And, 9-2-1. Sorry about that. I did miss that because I want to forget about this game on New Year's Eve where Cam Talbot let in some of the worst goals I've ever seen. Remember, he shot the puck at the Wings player?
Yeah, that was a tough one.
That was tough. But hey, I think Wings fans would say it was tough watching James Reimer try to make a save, swimming all over his net in the game over in Europe earlier this year. So look, goaltending's a huge part of it. Ducking, yeah. Reimer. Thought it was a pride flag. Just get out of the way. Beat it. My goodness. But with tonight's game with the Ottawa Senators and Detroit Red Wings, there's plenty to get into. And look, both teams are playing pretty well right now. The Senators are 5-2-2 in their last 9 games. And the month of December has just been unreal for the Detroit Red Wings. They're 9-2-1 in December, and they have wins against Toronto on the road.
Wait, are you talking about December or January?
January, sorry.
Okay.
Not a math guy.
Not a month guy.
Not a month guy. They beat the Panthers on the road. They beat the Lightning. They beat the Vegas Golden Knights in their last game. They've been off for 3 days going into tonight's game. So we'll have keys to victory. We'll have a locked-on player. We'll talk about Matthew Joseph. We got a lookout player. And plus, it's been exactly 20 games under Jacques Martin. There's some good, and there's some bad. And some of it's been flat out ugly. So we'll get into all that. Plus, Scott Wheeler's got his prospect pool rankings, and we'll tell you where the Senators are on that. That's all coming up. This is Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel. Detroit Lions fans probably not celebrating this Super Bowl as much as they would want. But if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about getting the best seat on the couch, getting the best snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways that you can end the season with a W, or 2 or 3, depending on how things go. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, obviously, but FanDuel has so many other bets. Which players will score a touchdown? How many points are going to be scored? You can even bet on either quarterback to catch their own pass at plus 5,000. And Ross, a new one I saw FanDuel posted on Twitter today, not football related bet. Will Usher play a debut new song during the Super Bowl halftime show? So you can bet on that as well. Not sure how you study the odds on that, but you can bet on it on FanDuel. And new customers in the US, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So check it out today, guys. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Jacques Medical. Look, we come to sports to escape, but let's talk about real life for just a minute and being prepared for it. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if any of the people in my family got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jacques Medical. The Jacques case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. So visit JacquesMedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. So go to JacquesMedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off. That's offer code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your next order at Jacques Medical. All right, Pilsy, here we are. It's the final game day ahead of the NHL All-Star break. It's in Detroit. It's a 7 o'clock Eastern start, and you know we'll have the postcast immediately following what should be a very fun game. Look, Monday's game ended up being awesome. Ottawa raced a 3-0 deficit. They come back. They win in overtime. The Stars shone bright. We discussed plenty yesterday on Locked On Senators. If you want those vibes, go check that out on yesterday's show and in the postcast on Monday night. But this game tonight, look, I know there's 3 games in the NHL, but this matchup just feels like it deserved front and center like Monday. It was the only game in the NHL, and this just feels like it's got that oomph to it. And look, if Ottawa can go 6-2-2 in a 10-game sample size going into the All-Star break, I'm not saying anything beyond the immediate look ahead of how it's going to affect the psyche of this team going forward. Pilsy, dare I call it a must-win game?
Look, I'm down to call it a must-win game. There's not many more important games for the Senators and for the Senators fan base than trying to play spoiler to a Detroit Red Wings team that is in the final wild card position. So if you can knock them down a couple pegs, that'd be a nice feeling.
If the Detroit Red Wings win tonight's game, let me go wash my mouth out. They will be in a top 3 spot in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is a big, big game for the Red Wings, and they're at home heading into the All-Star break. So this would be ultimate spoiler for the Sens.
Look, it's such a loser talk, but I'm here for it. I'm here to be the spoiler 46 games into the season.
Well, and Ross, if you head to FanDuel, the Ottawa Senators are plus money, even money in this game. I think they're at plus 100. So if you're feeling confident about the spoiler, you might as well toss a couple shekels on it.
Well, you can do that over at FanDuel. Now, let's look at the Detroit Red Wings first. We'll get into the Ottawa Senators in the final segment. Sens are on the ice for morning skate right now, so we'll have all those lineups for you as they progress. But heading into this game, and before we look at the lineups, I just want to discuss the power play and penalty killing for the Detroit Red Wings. It's pretty good right now. Look, the power play was started pretty poorly. It's up to 12th. It's clicking at 23%, and their PK is 13th. So both have improved, and both are in the top half of the league. So Ottawa has to match that. And that's been a tough go for the Ottawa Senators in their last 10, 15 game sample size of being able to do that. But look, this to me, it's going to come down to special teams and goaltending. And I don't even think it's much of a hot take. A lot of hockey does that, but that's the 2 areas of the game where Ottawa needs to be at their best to get a victory tonight.
Well, and kind of tying on to the special teams discussion is going to be discipline, right? Like, I don't know where the players are at when it comes to the whole Joseph Larkin situation, but you got to keep calm heads if you want to stay out of the box and not allow either team to get those opportunities. Because, Ross, I feel like this is one of those games where the ref pregame meetings, they're going to be very tight on being like, okay, if anything happens around Larkin and Joseph, we're not messing around. We're taking guys out right away. We're not going to allow the opportunity for emotions to get elevated and for this game to get out of control. So that's something to keep an eye on here, is how tight the refs are going to call situations around those players.
Dylan Larkin is on an 11-game point streak right now. He's got 9 goals and 6 assists for 15 points over his last 11 straight games. He centers the top line between Alex the Kitty Cat and Lucas Raymond. The second line, JT Compher, between David Perron and Robbie Fabry. You've got Andrew Kopp between Michael Rasmussen and Fisher. What's his first name?
Christian.
Usually I'm Jewish, but I'll be Christian today. Christian Fisher on right wing there. And fourth line is Joe Valeno with Klim Kostin and Dylan Sprong. On the back end, you've got Jake Wallman with Moritz Seider. You've got Oli Mata with Jeff Petrie. You've got Shane Gostisbehere with Justin Hall. And in goal, Alex Lyon. Alex Lyon is one of those small sample size guys in the past who's put up good numbers. He helped Florida sneak into the playoffs last year. Ultimately,
he's the reason they got in.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Well, this year he's picked up right where he's left off. If you set the, 5 NHL games, because you get that small sample size from a few different guys, but Alex Lyon is tied with Connor Hellebuck in save percentage this year. That's unreal. Yeah. He's got a .924 save percentage. He starts in goal. James Reimer is the backup. Pilsy, your lookout player to watch.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Alex Lyon. There's some sort of joke here between the Detroit Lions not being able to get it done and then Alex Lyon being able to help the Red Wings here. I haven't had enough time to workshop that, but there's something there. For me, my lookout player is going to be David Perron. I can't really think of any big reason why I decided to target him as my lookout player for this game, but 57. He paid the price, 6-game suspension, which it's definitely fair. But then you're looking at Gallagher only getting 5 games there. That's a weird one, but that's neither here nor there. David Perron, he's been decent since coming back, but I think with no Patty Kane in the lineup, he gets a elevated spot, or maybe it would be Fabry that would move down, but certainly no Patty Kane. Other players are going to have opportunities that they wouldn't with him here. Perron's been good on the power play for the Red Wings, so you got to watch out for that. And like I mentioned, he's going to be one of those guys where I'm sure the refs are very in tune about what's going on here, and they're going to be watching what goes on around David Perron big time in this game. So I'm going to be looking out for him.
Somebody's got to talk about Alex DeBrincat, so I guess I'll take that role on in this situation. Last year in Ottawa, he averaged 0.8 points per game. This year with Detroit, he's averaging 0.88. So pretty much a similar go, and he's really struggled as of late putting the puck in the net. Alex DeBrincat has just 1 goal in his last 13 games, and that's while his team's been winning, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a surprise there. He's got 5 assists over that span as well, and we know
he's hitting a lot of posts.
He's taking this very personally. Like, he got into it with Brady, the jawing match. He was visibly upset after he got rocked by Ridley Gregg. Like, he's definitely showing up for tonight's game. So for Ottawa, just dominate him physically. He's still the same size he was in Ottawa, a little pint size. So just get after him. And I think that if you challenge him physically early on, he might be more concerned about trying to, play hard, play down low, rather than do his job, which is putting the puck in the back of the net. So I think that if you're Ottawa, like, look, we're going to get to the Sens lines, but that Pinto and Gregg combination, I want them out on the ice against Alex DeBrincat every single shift. And look, Tarasenko, he's kind of the quote-unquote replacement for Alex DeBrincat when you look at it from a financial perspective for the Ottawa Senators. Adding him into the lineup this year, that's the line altogether. And I think that the 3 of them, could have some fun up against that Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond line. How interesting, though, that DeBrincat only has 1 goal in his last 13 games playing with Larkin, who's on an 11-game point streak.
Yeah, I mean, I got to assume Lucas Raymond is the one cashing in on Larkin's success then.
I'm going to look right now because that to me is a very interesting side plot of tonight's game. Obviously, whenever those two teams, whenever the Sens and Wings get together, we have to discuss the play of Alex DeBrincat. But yeah, over the last number of games, Lucas Raymond's got 3 straight 2-assist performances. So he's got 6 points in his last 3 games. And if you go back the same sample size that DeBrincat has 1 goal, guess what? Raymond only has 2.
Wow. Okay.
But he's got 12 assists for 14 points.
Sheesh. Yeah, Ross, I love the idea you have there, but I don't know if I'm putting my third line up against the Wings top line like that.
Ottawa's kind of spread out though, right? Like a lot of their players are spread out throughout the top 9.
And if that third line can shut down the top line, then you get the Sens top 2 lines going up against the Wings middle 6. Hopefully that's a trade-off that could work in the Sens' favor.
On the other side, we'll get into the Senators and who's starting in goal, plus 20 games under Jacques Martin. We want you to let us know in the comments, too. Like, what's been your good, bad, and ugly under Jacques Martin? We'll get into that next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Factor, a new sponsor of the pod. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door with Factor. Over 35 meals to choose from per week, including keto options, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more, plus 55 weekly add-ons. You'll have so many nutritious and flavorful options to get started. Forget the frantic lunch preps and rush dinners. Factor's 2 minutes meals are your secret weapon in the new year. It's delivered right to your door. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper, way more delicious than takeout. And they're ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Need a special occasion? Check out Gourmet Plus. It's the perfect solution if you're looking for fast upscale options done easily. And life gets hectic, so Factor is flexible. You can change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or you can pause or reschedule deliveries any time. Factor is everything you want for a week of flavorful nutritional eats. In addition to ready-eat meals, they have cold-pressed juices, smoothies, energy bites, extra protein, veggie sides, and more. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50. I'm really emphasizing 50, 50, not 15, 50, half off your meal. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at Factor Meals to get 50% off. Check it out today, guys, at Factor.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the Glebe Central Pub, the GCP, where the vibes are free. Go check them out at 779 Bank Street. Pilsy, I'm going to let you take it from here with the Glebe Central Pub because I'm about to sneeze.
Okay, well, Gesundheit in advance, and the Glebe Central Pub, it's easy for me to take over because they've been a sponsor of this pod for a long time. They're the official POSTCAST sponsor. You can check them out at 779 Bank Street. They got great food, great drinks, and great service. They are Sens fans at the Glebe Central Pub, so much that they're trying to get more Sens fans out to the games. Check out their website and you can find the Sens shuttle. It takes you to the game from the pub. Go have some fun at the game. Then meet Sue, the bus driver, back in the parking lot. She'll take you back to the GCP. And the best part about all of it, the value, only $17 round trip. So you can't have more fun at a better value at a Sens game than going with the GCP shuttle. So check that out today, guys. Our favorite pub in the Glebe is the Glebe Central Pub.
Pilsy, it's game day for the Ottawa Senators. Heck of an ad read there. Appreciate you. And I got to the mute button just before the sneeze came. So we're all set here.
Which is good because Ross is a hilarious sneezer.
Oh my goodness. And I never sneeze once. It's always a minimum of 4 or 5. So I was able to get them all out of my system. And now I'm ready to break down what we're expecting for the Ottawa Senators in tonight's game. Look, we did it a bit differently. We went with the opponent first. And the reason for that being the Ottawa Senators just got off the ice at Little Caesars Arena. And now we can find out the lines stay the same as what they were once they went into the blender in the middle of yesterday or Monday's game against the Nashville Predators. Josh Norris is centering Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson. Don't call them the kid line anymore. These men are grown. The second line is Tim Stützle between Mathieu Joseph and Claude Giroux. You got Shane Pinto between Ridley Gregg and Vladimir Tarasenko. And then Mark Kostelik is between Dominic Kubalik and Parker Kelly. On the back end, nothing changes. Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Jacob Chychrun, and Eric Brandstrom is with Jacob Bernard Docker. Eunice Korpisalo starts in goal. Korpisalo was in goal during that December 5-1 win against the Detroit Red Wings. He actually had a great game then too, made 30 saves for the victory. He was also in goal for the overtime win against the Detroit Red Wings in Europe, and he also faced them early in the season. We won't talk about that 5 goals on 23 shots, but the last 2 games, both wins for Korpisalo against the Red Wings. Who is your locked on player? And do you have any thoughts on how the trios are organized?
I mean, this is kind of how I expected the lines to shake out here. I can't decide if I'm happy or disappointed that Kubalik's in here. Like we mentioned, like this has got to be a game where Dominic Kubalik gets up and tries to build some momentum before the All-Star break up against his old team. But it also would have been nice to have Zach McEwen in the lineup just to have a little extra toughness in the lineup. And hey, Zach McEwen scored some pretty nice goals this season too. But other than that, I think it's nice how this all shakes out. My locked-on player is going to be number 21, Mathieu Joseph, Wings fans' favorite Ottawa Senator. And I would almost argue that the Detroit Red Wings are Mathieu Joseph's favorite team to play up against, especially Ross, when he has been in Ottawa Senators. We tweeted out on Twitter at Sens Central Mathieu Joseph's stats versus Detroit since being traded to Ottawa. These are nice, Ross. 8 games played, 3 goals, 8 assists, good for 11 points in 8 games, plus 12 and 13 PIMs. No wonder the Detroit Red Wings fans hate Mathieu Joseph so much. He puts up points. That's all he does. I can't think of anything else he does up against the Red Wings other than put up points.
Me neither. I'm trying really hard to think. Look, he's a weapon on the PK. He brings speed, and that's what Jacques Martin noted when he made these line changes. He wants speed on every line. So he took Tkachuk off of Stützle and Giroux's line, added that element of speed with Mathieu Joseph, and then you're adding a little bit more toughness on the Josh Norris, Drake Batherson line. So I like that change. I think now you've got a top 9 where any of these lines could be the X factor in tonight's game. But I'm going on the back end for mine, Pillsy. I'm going with Jake Sanderson. And
is that back-to-back Jake Sanderson locked-on players?
I was going to say, everyday citizens know that I picked Jake Sanderson on Monday night, and man, did he live up to the hype. He had such an amazing game. When you're going up against Roman Josi and you're the best defenseman on the ice, that's a huge compliment. And that's what Jake Sanderson was on Monday. He was tremendous with the puck. He was calm, confident away from it. And like, who would have thought that being taken away from Travis Hamonic and put with Artem Zub would bring the best out of Jake Sanderson? Please don't all raise your hand in unison. But my goodness, this kid is 21 years old. And not only is he great overall, he loves playing against the Detroit Red Wings. Do you think that he looks at it and is like, yeah, that team passed on me at 4th overall?
No, I don't think so, Ross.
Because he was playing at the program in Ann Arbor. He was in Michigan, just like Quinn Hughes was, under their nose, and they passed. Now, look, Lucas Raymond, tremendous player. He's having a good year. But, man, like, think of a Sanderson-Sider pairing. Like,
yeah, it definitely would be something. But I think Lucas Raymond was the guy they were going to take if Tim Stützle wasn't there. So I think overall they're happy with it. And Jake Sanderson, a lot of people thought that was a reach by the Ottawa Senators. And now those same people are coming out of the woodworks being like, hand up, I was wrong.
Yep, and fair enough. Look, the reason I asked, because he clearly loves playing against Detroit. He has 4 goals against Detroit. Jake Sanderson has 11 career goals, and 4 of them are against the Detroit Red Wings. He has 4 goals, 5 points against Detroit in 7 games. He's +6 while averaging 22 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm going to be locked on to Jake Sanderson. As we do each and every game day on Twitter at Sens Central, we ask the citizens, who is your locked on player to watch? And this one was one of the closer ones that we've done in a while. It's actually gotten even closer since we put up the poll. We're 400 votes in, but Joonas Korpisalo is the locked on player to watch at 32.3%. We already discussed a little bit about his games against the Red Wings this year. Last game, brilliant, coming in relief. Played a great 43 minutes, the overtime plus the second and third period. Can he string together multiple good performances in a row? That will be the challenge. I've always been a Joonas Korpisalo guy, so I think that it's very clear that I believe that he can do it. But I want to touch on the guy who finished second on this. It's 29%. It's Josh Norris. By the way, third and fourth, Tim Stützle, 19.5, Brady, 19. This has to be one of the closest 4-way polls that we've put up for our locked on player to watch. Appreciate everybody for voting. Still time to get your vote in before tonight's game. Let us know why in the comments. Our friend Liliams Martian put in the comments, said, I'm watching Josh Norris to see if he can complete dry January. No goals since December 22nd for Josh Norris. Now a Michigan native, and we know you always get tempted to have a few when you're in front of friends and family, especially when you got that Newfoundlander blood in you. You think that Josh Norris and the Buys can get a couple tonight?
Man, I hope so, Ross. Like, it's this drought for Josh Norris has been crazy. He's on the line where kind of the success all started out with that kid line. Although you said don't call them the kid line anymore, so I guess I won't.
Past tense, though, you can.
Okay, past tense, I will use that. And yeah, in Michigan and Ross, what goes great with a slice of Little Caesars pizza? How about getting off dry January, having a couple here? So I'm not looking just for one from Josh Norris here. I'm looking for a couple champagne clinks as he celebrates some goals.
I love that. As we look at his career against the Detroit Red Wings, he's got 5 goals in 7 games, 8 points against his hometown team. So we'll be watching for that closely.
I kind of hoped that they would put Joseph back up there with he was with Brady and Norris, right?
Yeah.
That's when they had that success. Part of me was hoping they would do that just to try to rekindle some of that magic.
No, I like your thought process there, but no dice, not tonight for Josh Norris, who starts with Tkachuk and Drake Batherson on his wing. So tonight's game, it's a 7 o'clock start at Little Caesars Arena, and make sure you check us out on YouTube right after the game for our immediate reaction following this matchup. Now let's take a look at the 20-game sample size now under Jacques Martin. It's interesting to see, and I know this is a little hard to read, so we'll break this down. Maybe I can chop off the bottom few guys, right? Like let's look at the top performers under Jacques Martin. Brady Tkachuk started out so slowly.
Yeah.
He's come alive. I got a Tim Stützle stat for everybody as well. Since January 13th, and obviously that's when Ottawa started winning. No surprise then that their players are starting to do well. Tim Stützle in his last 9 games has 13 points. 12 of them are at even strength. There's only one player in the league that over the last 2.5 weeks has more points at even strength than Tim Stützle. That player is likely MVP Nathan MacKinnon. That's a pretty good company to be in. And then even in overall points, and that is keeping in mind that Tim Stützle's all of his points except for one have come at even strength. If you're just looking at regular points, the list is also very short about who has more than him. It's like Nikita Kucherov, it's David Pastrnak, it's Leon Draisaitl. It is an impressive stretch of hockey right now. And Mikko Rantanen's tied with him. Like, that's the company that he's keeping right now. But can he keep it rolling? That's the question tonight. But overall, in the 20-game sample size, Pillsy, under Jacques Martin, who to you is, like, what would you consider the good? What would be the best part of the last 20 games?
I mean, I forget when exactly they went back to this, but finally just realizing Sanderson and Zub need to be put together. Because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think under Jacques Martin, they were always together.
I don't believe so, no. And this is since December 18th. You can go check out yourself. The first game under Jacques Martin was that game in Arizona. They had 2 games left on that horrid road trip, and then they came back, right? Artem Zub missed, I think it was that first game, right? Because he was just about ready to come back. He's played 19 of the 20 games under Jacques Martin. But yeah, I think that that's a great call because those two have stabilized at least 20 minutes a night at even strength. You know what you're getting. Consistency in the back end.
Yeah, and then another point I would make is Claude Giroux really stepped up through this break with Jacques Martin coming in. I think other players like Brady, Timmy, they struggled when he first came in, so Claude Giroux kind of took hold and was like, I'm the veteran leader here. I'll keep the consistency. I'll keep things moving. So Claude Giroux has been very good in that time. And then Ridley Gregg was very, very good. And then it seems like he's a bit in Jacques Martin's doghouse a little bit now, but I think he's going to come out of that. And for Ridley Gregg to be one of the players, if not the player with the best plus-minus stats on this team, plus 14. Yeah, he is the best player. Like, he's been so consistent throughout his time in Ottawa this year. So you'll love to see that from Ridley Gregg.
I know why Ridley Gregg's in the doghouse, by the way. Do I agree with it? Not wholeheartedly. Obviously, that embellishment penalty was a complete joke. Imagine the spirit in the junk and trying to keep it moving. Ridley Gregg has taken the most penalties on the team since Jacques Martin took over. He's taken 8 penalties. There's definitely a reason that.
But I mean, for a young player that for a chunk of that time was playing first line center minutes,
totally,
it's gonna happen.
I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that's what I believe to be the case.
Could be
for why Ridley Gregg found himself on the 4th line. And look, he's right back up on the 3rd. And even after the first period, like Kubalik, we talked about it yesterday. Go watch that video. I don't need to rehash that. I don't. We're done having that
Especially
conversation.
with Red Wings fans watching today. We don't need to have that discussion.
No, we definitely don't. But elsewhere with the terms of Jacques Martin, for me, it's you mentioned Artem Zub. How about the offense from Artem Zub as well? Artem Zub's got 9 points in his last 19 games. Like, that to me is a huge step up. And obviously him and Jake Sanderson each with 9 points. To me, that's a huge boost for what this team is. Elsewhere, obviously, the line shuffling, I think the in-game adjustments would be a good for me. Like, after the first period under DJ, they would have just been like, oh, work. We'll get back into it. But if they change the lines, they had a set, not set play. Brady said it wasn't set, but set in terms of like a play off a face-off, like not within the flow of the game, but a play off a face-off that ends up being the game-tying goal for Brady. Like, it just feels like there's more cohesiveness with the whole unit, but at the same time, they're not afraid to make adjustments. So I think that that's been a good part of it. The bad is still special teams. Like, the power play has turned it around a bit. I know that they went 0-4 against Nashville, but the last 2 games before then, there were signs that it was changing. But for me, I'll say the bad has been both special teams, the PK and the power play.
Yeah, for me, the bad would be, and I'm trying to find the right way to say this, so I guess I'll go with not being able to find the right way to utilize Jacob Chychrun. The Chabot-Chychrun pair, I'm still not a fan of. I don't love Chychrun on the right side like I hoped I would, and it just seems like those guys, they haven't figured it out together yet. And it's unfortunate because both of them are such good players in their own right, but they need to find a way to properly use Jacob Chychrun, and I don't believe they've found it yet.
Yeah, Chychrun's been struggling a little bit as of late. He's dashed 10 in his last 20 games, but a lot of that was...
great game last game, but...
One of his best games of the year. Like we talked about the gazelle skating that he had going back to cover the 2-on-0, and then he was screening in front on the game-winning goal. There's lots of signs. Like, Chychrun's the kind of defenseman that 5 times in a game, I'm like, he's the best player on the ice, and there's 5 times in the game where I'm like, what is he thinking? I feel like he struggles with in-zone defending. Like, once a team gets set up in the offensive zone, he struggles to make the right play under pressure. I think off the rush, he's a good defender. We've always noticed that he used one hand on his stick, and he has a very long range of what he's able to get pucks off of sticks. But in-zone defending for me is what has to improve for Jacob Chychrun. Now, Chabot, probably the same criticisms, but at the same time, 10 points in 15 games for Chabot under Jacques Martin. So he's producing. which is good. And he's helping the power play click. And I know I've been saying that he needs to speed things up a bit when he's moving up on the power play. He's got 4 points on the power play. And considering how anemic their power play's been, like they might only have 5 power play goals over that stretch. So good on him for there. And look, we're seeing growth defensively for Tim Stützle. Brady's coming along. So there is some good. Now the ugly, it's the team save percentage is still at the bottom of the league. And I don't know how much of that's coaching and high danger chances, but that needs to improve for the Senators to be a better team than where they are now.
But Ross, I feel like it's either been really bad goaltending or really solid. Like there was that 5-game stretch before the Rangers absolutely beat down the Sens where Korpisalo was playing good. Matt Sogard had a nice win in Philly. Like there was a little moment in time where it didn't seem like that was the kind of catalyst of all this team's issues, and they were winning games during that stretch. So, you know, hopefully with Justin Peters as the new goalie coach now in Ottawa, you know, it might take some time for him to fully be aware of all the issues and work out some of the kinks with Korpisalo, most importantly. But Justin Peters is a guy that has worked with Matt Sogard. He was Belleville's goalie coach, so he knows Sogard as well. So I'm hoping he can make some big changes here to what's going on in the crease. My God.
Let us know in the comments, the good, bad, and ugly under Jacques Martin. One roster note from yesterday that happened just after we recorded. Rourke Chartier has been placed on waivers. Now, he's only got 4 points in 30-some NHL games.
It's okay.
And I think that's career. But again, it was defensively. We thought that he had a role to play on this. Were you surprised at all? Yeah, 3 points, 2 goals in 34 games this year. I'm mildly surprised, but I got to give a shout out to Steve Lloyd with TSN 1200. He had a great point. Look, it seems like Anton Forsberg could be ready after the All-Star break. So to make the money work and to take him off of LTIR, you have to make a corresponding roster move. Sorry, and also they want to get Matt Sogard games in Belleville, but you have to have 2 goalies on the roster, right? So to take Forsberg off, they had to make a corresponding move. So I think Chartier, they hope, will clear waivers. We'll find out probably by the time you're listening to this, and then they're able to send down Sogard, activate Forsberg, knowing that they're not playing as of tomorrow.
I kind of thought they would send down McEwen, though, because he's already cleared waivers and he's not in the lineup.
It's been more than 30 days, so he would have to clear again.
Okay. But I think he would clear again. So, yeah, that's interesting, especially like Rourke Chartier is a Jacques Martin guy, like he joked about in the media. So that is surprising that he's the guy that kind of has to pay the price there. But hopefully, I'm really hoping he doesn't get claimed. That's just it's a nice player to have for this roster.
Yeah, certainly is. All right, Pilsy. We won't get into it too much, but Scott Wheeler has ranked the Senators prospect pool 31st out of 32 teams. And I have trouble arguing with it. Now, Scott Wheeler, we're actually going to talk to him in about an hour and a half. We'll get you that on Friday. We're going to do a 2-parter with him. First part, Sens prospect pool. That's coming on Friday. And then sometime next week, we'll get into the 2024 draft. And what does he think the Sens need to do to replenish the system and get going? Now, we can't really target players either like we could under the last regime because we don't know what Staios and I think it's Don Boyd, I think is the guy who's in charge of Ian Mendez asked at the press conference. It is Don Boyd is the director of amateur scouting now, and he's been with the Senators since 2013. So it's not necessarily a new voice, but a new direction under the new management. Obviously, they'll tell him what they want. Now, of note about Don Boyd, clearly he's got a great eye for talent because he was the Columbus Blue Jackets director of scouting when they drafted Mark Mathot.
Yes, clearly he knows what's up.
So any surprise by that? We read the entire article. It's great. We'd highly recommend you go check that out. I think we'll save a lot of our thoughts for that for Friday when we're chatting with Scott Wheeler, but I thought it was fair. He's got number 1, Tyler Clevin, number 2, Matt Sogard, and go check out the rest of the list for 3 through 12, basically. And for a lot of other teams, and again, they've only done 2, but he's got a few different tiers. He's after 2, you could basically do it 20 different ways. And 3 is Tyler Boucher, a very tough player to get a read on. He's only played 16 games in the last 2 years. So difficult.
Yeah, and Sens fans will want the asterisks to puff out their chests and be like, whoa, 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 just so you know, Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson,
Shane
Shane Pinto,
Ridley
yeah,
Gregg.
Ridley Gregg, those guys would have qualified if they didn't already graduate. So let's just make sure that's known.
And they showed on the Monday broadcast, the Senators lead the league in NHL points by players under 24. So
yeah. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this. But Ross, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised they were 31st. I thought maybe they'd crack the high
top
20s.
30, the top 30. We can't crack the top 30. But there were some Penguins fans in the comments being like, I would trade our prospect pool for this.
That's as soon as I saw that, and the Islanders were dead last. I was like, the Penguins and the Bruins have better prospects than the Ottawa Senators right now, but it's fair, I guess.
I think, well, they haven't drafted in the first round since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't draft in the first, second, or third round last year.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, shout out Hoyt Stanley, though.
Yeah, shout out Pierre Dorion, too. Anyways, any final thoughts on today's show? It should be a great game tonight.
Yeah, get your refreshments ready. Get your popcorn ready.
Eat some fried octopus for dinner.
Yeah, some fried octopus. And make sure no one's going to bug you because you're not going to have Sens hockey for, 10 days after this or something like that?
9 days. February 10th against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they come back with a bang.
Yeah, what a way to come back. So soak it all in and enjoy it. This is a must-win game. I'm right with you, Ross.
Spoiler.
Must-win game. Red Wings fans, if you've made it all the way to the 46th minute of this podcast, you're probably
sicko.
You're probably laughing right now, but
you're sick. If you made it to 46 minutes in and you're a Red Wings fan, you are sick.
But we appreciate the views and we appreciate the engagement. And like we said, like the rivalry, it's all fun and games. Like we're not taking anything too seriously. But please, you don't have a Red Wings dartboard in your house? No, I don't.
Voodoo ball?
If we can keep the rent-free comments to a minimum, that's what I'm expecting from Red Wings fans. That's so lame, the rent-free thing. So
pay your rent.
Yeah, pay your rent.
Pay your rent. And must watch POSTCAST tonight. So stay tuned for all that. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for watching. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.